The following production is intended for entertainment purposes only. We are not legal professionals. We do not speak for any government agency, and the opinions expressed here are our own. Relax.
Welcome, Lawless Podcast.
What up, homeboy?
We're back. We're back after a
Back.
long hiatus. Guess who's back? Back again.
Yeah.
J-Dub's back.
Man, it's good to see you, bro.
Yeah, dude, it's good to see you, man. It's been a while, right?
It's been a long while.
It's been a long time.
Now, I was thinking though, it's probably real close to. I'm almost about to see you in person, huh?
Yes, in a couple weeks.
Heck yeah, looking forward to it.
Yep.
Yeah, man, it's been. I don't even know. I don't remember. A lot has happened in the past, however long it's been.
It sure
In fact,
has.
I dare say the world has changed.
Man, it sure has. It's kind of been
tell ya.
crazy.
I can tell you that my world has changed.
How so? How's your world changed?
Well, you know that I don't like to talk necessarily about my politics all the time.
Sure.
And I don't know if we want to talk about politics, but I have
don't
never
mind.
in my life thought that, and this is 100% because of my upbringing. Like, I know for a fact, I never thought that I would think that Israel wasn't the good guys,
Woo!
weren't the good guys in conflict. Just like I never would have thought that America could be bad guys. I mean, I've had some paradigm shifts here in the
That's
past.
a tough pill to swallow.
And all of a sudden, once I start recognizing that, man, that's all of a sudden there's a lot more pieces come to the puzzle, right? Like things start to make sense, and you're like, wait a second, maybe this war, or these wars, or these politicians, maybe there's something else going on here.
What else could it be? And there's some people, it's just like we've talked about with everything that we've talked about with like like theological deconstruction, like deconstructing Western evangelicalism, or some of these ideas about like drugs after leaving law enforcement. You know what I mean? We had one idea during and pre-law enforcement, and an entire other idea about some things. You know what I mean? Just like I said, drugs was in their worldviews. Even though I don't think you and I went through this shift necessarily at the same time, I'll tell you my views on personal freedom when it comes to sexuality or your sexual identification. My views on that have gone completely 180 degrees since I'm talking about really since I was like a teenager or a hardcore fundamentalist. But even from like 10 years ago, I mean, I was pretty open and accepting to everyone 10 years ago, but I still had a theological idea like, yeah, sure, loving and accepting, but probably going to hell.
Good luck.
Man, that's gross.
I hope you get right before you die.
Yeah, I love you, accept you. I'm not going to see you in heaven, but I love you and accept you. Yeah. And so even since then, so much has changed. And now, just in the last, I mean, really week or days, but I mean, since the last couple months, so much has happened. What you said you had a couple big paradigm shifts. Where were you going with that?
Well, just that my theology required me to basically to take Ted Cruz's position. My theology required that to support the nation of Israel, no matter what.
We're going to come in hard talking about the podcast interview between Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz. Just to give a little bit of context to what we're speaking on at the gate.
Well, and so his theology is very, very familiar. Like I grew up with that.
Right.
And again, never in my entire life have I ever conceived of Israel not being the antagonist.
And his theology
of being the antagonist.
Right. And his theology that he kind of misquoted on Tucker Carlson was based out of Genesis 12, I believe. And it's when God is talking to Abraham. Is it Abraham or maybe one of his kids? But he says, blessed is your people. Blessed are the people who bless you, and cursed are the people who curse
Receive,
you.
yeah.
And he's talking about the people, the descendants of Abraham. That's obviously,
Father Abraham.
yeah, hadn't many sons.
Um, did
Abraham was a Canaanite. Judaism's a
did
Canaanite
it
religion.
did it seem to you like Ted thought that they were going to be on the same page? Because
Yeah,
he kind of I support Israel, like it was just a cool thing, as
there's
if he
still
didn't expect pushback.
people are blown away by the idea of like you're not on Team Israel? Like, what are you talking about? He even acted like that because in that conversation, in that line, that dialogue, um, Tucker Carlson was like, who do you mean the nation of Israel? And he's like,
Yeah,
well, who do you mean? You don't know who Israel is?
right.
It's like, dude, you're getting
Yeah,
pretty. You're showing your cards that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
but but I would challenge probably whoever on your Facebook, on my Facebook,
Yeah.
everybody who's posts all of the stuff. Like I saw a post the other day. It was just like a rando, um, but it had a picture of Jesus standing in the clouds wearing this, the Israeli flag, Star of
Uh-huh.
David, and
Uh-huh.
it said 1 or 2 billion Christians are standing with you, Israel, and then it had a Bible verse on it. And I was like, man, that's uh that's that's propaganda. Like
There,
that's wild.
yeah, it's nuts. There is this a soft influencer, special operation force soft influencer. It's a term for like gun guys on Instagram and TikTok and whatnot,
Okay.
soft influencers. One of the soft guys that I follow is this Marine guy, and I can't even remember what he said. It was like pro or against Israel, but I wrote in a comment, if you want to know uh if you want to know what the tiny hats think of Christianity, you should read the Talmud, one of their holy scriptures that was written post Jesus, after Jesus. And it was like silent for a day, and then all of a sudden I get like bling 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 bling, it starts blowing up. Do you know anything about the Talmud?
Um, I think I've heard it pronounced the Talmud,
Yeah.
but I don't. I mean, I know it's. I don't know what it is. I just know it's a Hebrew literature.
Yeah, it's like they have a bunch of books that's not necessarily dogmatic scripture, but just like how they turned the whatever rules from the Old Testament to 613 rules on top of it. There's some other books that are like guides, like add-ons, but like has been taught for.
Add-ons to would they be add-ons to what, like the 66 books that we have in the Bible, or
No, it'd
is the
be
Talmud
add-on. It would just be considered another like teaching doctrine, another script for
another authority?
yeah, another authority. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, maybe likening it to something, if Christians were more educated, something like written by St. Augustine or by Martin Luther, like a church father that knows what he's talking about. And Catholics would probably be into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something along
Yeah.
those lines. But it doesn't say anything nice about Jesus. It says that Jesus is in hell. It says that
Oh,
Jesus
dang.
is being, the most delicate way to put this is being boiled in a cauldron of human fluid, like
This is
degrading.
that
This is in the
this
Talmud.
is what's said in the Talmud about Jesus.
Christians and Jesus, and they go on to talk about her mother or his mother. His mother
Huh.
was a teenage
That's just
prostitute.
hateful.
Yeah, for real. It's
That's
like,
just rude.
it's awful. It's like really disgusting stuff, and they never mention it. So I put on there, is like, you want to know what the tiny hats think of Christians, you should read the Talmud. And bling, 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 bling. People have no idea. Just like, and I'm not even,
Interesting.
and Christianity has their own plenty of faults and examples that are 1,000 times worse than the scriptures. So I'm not condoning them based on their theology. I'm just saying that there's a lot that's been hidden, maybe even willfully ignored
Yeah. Yeah.
from Christians to pump up this relationship between American Western evangelicals and Israel. And
Yeah.
Israel as in 1947.
One of the things, if I'm not careful, I can find myself getting pretty angry about the fact that I've been used
Yeah.
for my entire life by politicians, most primarily politicians, uh, and how they influence have so much influence, and I
Yeah.
had no idea. I had no idea that I was being influenced so much or being used so much. But again, I guess I say that to say that it's been shocking to realize the propaganda involved and
Yeah.
the assumption that you must support Israel if you love Christ. And I do, like, I don't know enough to really pick a side. So I'm not trying to act like I'm up to speed on. I don't even know.
There is a bullhead catfish. I'd asked you not to interrupt, okay?
My understanding is that Israel bombed Iran. Iran responded. I don't know the details. All I'm saying is I'm not convinced Israel is the good guy.
Well, I mean, the the most basic of basic stories, or I mean, the basic of basic timeline on this is that Iran was doing nothing. Even if you buy the propaganda, like they were about to make a bomb, they're so close. That is literally the same line we've been hearing since 1998.
Quick pause. I remember Trump's first administration. He was hard after Iran. Like he wanted to
Yeah,
fight back then.
yeah.
So what's the deal? Why do we want to go to war with them so bad? Other than money, power, and corruption. You just take a
Hard.
spray, that's the face.
No,
It looked like it squirted back on you.
no, no.
Oh, okay.
um, why? I mean, so I mean, it's really hard not to sound to go right into cuckoo land, or at least what it sounds like. But it's literally has been at the behest of the government of Israel, is why Iraq was done, why, and not just them. Like there were some common interests, there were some shared interests. Kellogg Brown and Root and Halliburton and Northrop Grumman, they all made a pretty penny off Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya and Lebanon and Bahrain and Tehran, or in Abu Dhabi and, yeah, Tunisia. All the shadow wars that we're not even mentioning, like that's going on all over North Africa and the Middle East, like these special operation. JSOC's been out there doing assassinations, regime changes on behalf of the United States. That doesn't, I mean, there's been articles about it. There's been plenty of articles about it, but it doesn't make the news. You know, um, this has all been, like I said, there's been plenty of American interest and there's been plenty of American money made, but the number one political donor in the United States by far is AIPAC, the American Israel something for a coalition. John F. Kennedy, the president, wanted to disband AIPAC, or he wanted them to register as a foreign agent because, because
they're
yeah,
a foreign nation.
and so they talked about this on the Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz thing. Always the argument is like, no, they're not funded by the government of Israel. They're funded by individuals. And then if you look, which is true, if you look at those individuals, they're all in the government of Israel. Like it's all finance directors and secretary, like the Israeli Secretary of State is a board member of AIPAC. That Netanyahu has been involved in AIPAC. All, like, sure, it's not the Israeli government, but it's the Israeli government.
Right. Yeah.
And they raise money, like, weirdly enough, they already have billions of dollars, but they take American, mostly Western evangelicals, poor grandmas and poor grandpas, and you know what I mean, teenagers that think they're gonna help support the nation of Israel because blessed are the people who bless. That money's going to AIPAC.
I can I can actually picture the card that you tear out of. I don't know where I saw it. I used to see a magazine that was like,
Yep.
is like it was some church affiliated magazine, and it had a card that you could tear out, put your name.
Yeah.
I guess credit card. That doesn't seem smart, but yeah, you could. I know
Donate,
exactly
right?
what that is. Yep.
And so they raise a lot of money. So it's like, in a way, it's just like BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. They all own each other by different LLCs, so it's technically not a monopoly. It's not one business owns everything. It's like, oh, these three businesses own each other and they own everything. So it's kind of like that with which BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street has a lot of ties to the government of Israel also. But that's how AIPAC is making direct contributions to Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz admitted to taking money from AIPAC yesterday. He's that on the interview that was released yesterday. He's admitting to taking money from the government of Israel, from members of the government of Israel, um, to further their interest. And right now, their interest is war with Iran. And so Ted Cruz he's ringing the bell. He's blowing the trumpet.
And Lindsey Graham is saying game on.
He is, it's weird because I'm I'm developed. I've progressed enough in life to where I don't make juvenile homophobic jokes anymore. I did at one point, but I've progressed past that. I've elevated.
You've
But
grown.
Lindsey Graham is it's an obvious closeted homosexual. And he just has the weirdest war boners, especially for Israel. Do you see his post? They're all over X. He was like, game on. The gloves
I
are
saw
off.
that one. I
Like,
saw that one, and it made me think of that that George Bush uh, video where he's like, yeah, saying something patriotic, whatever, rah rah. Now watch this drive,
yeah.
and what comes to mind, or what it makes me feel in my, deep in my soul, is this motherfucker's not gonna, he's not, this isn't gonna cost him a thing. He's gonna get
No.
rich from this while my friends die, and while my soon-to-be comrades are getting PTSD and developing all kinds of problems while you're playing golf.
Yeah. And like even him, it's I've been thinking about this recently. Everyone wants to jump on Dick Cheney and how much money he made as the former CEO of Kellogg Brown and Root, which got no bid contracts to rebuild Iraq and Afghanistan. But the Bush family, like Bush himself, they're all Texas oil. They're old Texas oil family. I think technically they're from Maryland or whatever, but they're heavily invested in Texas oil. Um, all petroleum. I mean, every tank, every Humvee, every jet, every vehicle over there, every chainsaw, every generator, it's all using gasoline, baby. And if you're in the oil business, you're making a lot of money. There's a lot of people, like the Saudis made a lot of money, and they lost those pesky Sunni neighbors they had that were causing all kinds of problems for all the Shiites over there. Same, same, yeah, it's been like that. There's a lot of interest and a lot of people were benefiting from these wars, but definitely like in the first Gulf War and the second Gulf War, Netanyahu always makes a special trip to Congress to talk about how close Iran is to building the bomb. Uh, yeah, to finishing his bomb. He did it with Iraq. He did it with Iraq twice. They're about to have they have the WMDs. There's videos of him right now all over Instagram and talking about Iraq, like the world is going to be a safer place. You're going to be welcomed with open arms. You're going to bring stability. Fast forward 25 years, the the world is, I'd say, not a safer place. I don't know,
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. So
but
yeah, it's that's one of the things. Uh, I
and
just
some people just can't hear that. Like their Western evangelical brain just has like covers over their ears and over their eyes where they just cannot see that.
Though, I think it was. So I'm only seeing clips. I'm not sure. I guess they're all from Tucker Carlson, but I saw one with Candace Owens where she's talking about it. And I think it's a really good point that even if you believe that the Bible requires you to support Israel, is it talking about the current state of Israel? Do you
Right.
really think that the Bible is commanding you to support Netanyahu's Israel?
Yeah.
I mean, that's even if you want to say that your faith requires you to support them. So I do wonder if some evangelicals will kind of think about that and go, "Ooh, wait a second." I've seen a lot, and this may have more to do with, I think, current modern Christianity is a lot more. I think that it's eventually, I think it's going to become a community event, a community center.
What is?
I think the church. I think the modern church. That's what it's going to evolve into. But what I'm trying to say is I'm seeing Christians posting things about not wanting to go to war, and this isn't our
Yeah.
war, and this isn't what we voted for. All this kind of stuff. So it makes me think, well, maybe maybe we're splitting a little bit from where our parents were.
For sure. So Charlie Kirk, who's like been the loudest evangelical champion over the last 20 years, 25 years, I guess. What was that show he was on back in the 80s and 90s? He was a child actor.
Charlie Kirk, was he
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. But he put a poll out that I responded to on X. I got X over the last couple of months during our transition, our hiatus, and I've been enjoying it. He put a poll out after Israel started this shit, and should the U.S. get involved in Israel's war against Iran? Yes or no? Uh, I know he thought it was going to be overwhelmingly yes, but I think the final numbers was 80% no, 20% yes. But at one point it was like 89% no, 11% yes. And he responded to it as like, I can't believe this many people got it wrong. And everyone was like, yeah, 11% got it wrong. We should not be. It's overwhelmingly. And his
Yeah,
audience is MAGA. Charlie Kirk's
yeah.
audience is like the Western evangelicals, I think. And I don't think anybody wants this. Nobody wants this war. The ones,
No,
obviously, there are some on social media that we see, and some might be seeing this that are still on it. But I would just challenge you to hear the arguments. Open your mind and just hear that you can hold on to your theology. You can hold on. You can even hold on to your MAGA and still be against another war.
I can hear somebody saying, "Well, yeah, but their motto is death to America." You're telling me that we can live peaceably with a country whose motto is death to America?
Yeah. Oh, what's the
Like,
answer to that?
yeah, what's the answer?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to answer to that, but something I'll say. So the real answer to that is there's extremes in all religions. There's extremist people in all religions, and there are absolutely Islamic fundamental extremists that want America to burn. Like there are very extreme Islam, just like there are extreme every religion. Look at the war
Westboro Baptist.
Westboro Baptist. Um, the Hindus, dude, are getting extreme against the Muslims, against the Muzzies. Pakistan versus India, dude. They're doing these like false flag operations against each other. Almost had nuclear war a couple weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah, like Donald Trump had to talk them both off the ledge.
Dang.
Pakistan and India were about to nuke each other. So yeah, there are extremists in Iran that would definitely be chanting death to America. If you look at the history of Ayatollah Khomeini, um, who's the extremist religious supreme ruler of Iran. Go ahead.
Does does Ayatollah, is that a title? Like, is
Yeah,
that a
that
position?
mm-hmm. is specifically in the sect of Islam that he's in. The Ayatollah is like a mullah, like a head, close to like bishop or pope, like the head of the Baptist convention. You know what I mean? Like not the head of all Christianity, but a big.
Of the good ones.
Yeah, well, like of your group, if you happen to be in the group he's in, he's the head of your group. You know what I mean? He
Yeah.
doesn't speak for all Muslims, but he speaks for a lot of them, especially in Persia. He's the one who's leading this. Um, Even in Iran, like the mainstream media, CNN, Fox News will tell you that he has a very violent and firm grasp, but it's he's not the majority. Like the Iran is not mostly these religious extremists. They want to be modern. They had a very modern, cozy relationship with Israel and America leading up to 79 when Khomeini took sole power of that place. 69 or 79, I might be getting that confused. Yeah, I think 69. But anyway, they were like, women were wearing short skirts, they were making Hollywood movies, they were Elvis, all this stuff was going on with Iran. They were kind of like Cuba. They were America by proxy. Like there was a
Yeah.
lot of oil, there was a lot of good relationships with them out there. There was like the fourth documented, and what's cool is I got some receipts. If we want to do screen share, we can. But there are documented operations now declassified under Freedom of Information Act, FOIA is what they call it, where not just the CIA, like up until World War II, it was London or England mostly. During World War II, it was England and Russia. But post World War II, it's been pretty much strictly United States and Israel. There's been at least like 5 different regime changes since 1921 in Iran, caused by Western intelligence agencies or Western intervention. I would say the people.
You say caused by, like, we executed that regime change.
Yeah, so the first 2 was in 1921 and I think 1929, and those were military coups, where like the military took control of killed the president or killed the king or whoever, and they took control. Those were both spearheaded by the English military, by the English army. English army like empowered and caused these military coups, like directly. During World War II, England and Russia did the same thing. They did a military coup, except it wasn't English tanks and it wasn't English soldiers this time. This time it was Iranian soldiers, but it was just funded and trained by England and Russia. That was in 42 or 40, yeah, 42. Then again, that put this family in that called themselves the Shahs, which was like the kings. They called themselves the kings, kind of like the Saudi family did. Actually, the exact same thing that happened in Saudi Arabia. A rich family called themselves the kings. The exact same thing happened in Iran, and it was kind of around the same time too. England picked this family and said, "Hey, you're the kings of Iran. Congratulations!" And everything was going good. They had this president who became friends with he was getting pretty chummy with the Russians, and so the US after that was post World War II, the US sponsored this thing called the White Revolution, and specifically in it they were hiring agent provocateurs. They were going to the slums, they were going to the bars, they're going to this place, to the homeless places, and say, "Hey, I'll give you a lot of money if like for you $5," which is like, "Oh my lord, I can buy whatever," all the way up to union laborers, like union organizations, like, "Hey, I'll give you guys $20,000 if you can organize a riot." They were starting riots, starting fires, leaving leaving
When
weapons
was
to
this?
Iran. And the White Revolution was in 63.
Okay.
And it was widely criticized by all of the Arab countries because they knew it was the CIA. They're like, hey, this is not real. Like the youth of Iran did not really do this. This was Western interference. There was basically that didn't go anywhere. But the Arab world noticed, like in '63, the Arab world noticed, like, hey, the CIA's hand is in this. Well, then it's in '69. Years after that, this CIA document I have, it specifically says Ayatollah Khamenei was selected as the head of the opposition. The CIA selected Khamenei as the head of
Does
the
it
opposition
does it
because
specify who selected him? Does it specify that they made the selection?
there's a lot of it that's still redacted, but to be honest, I haven't read the whole thing. It's hundreds of pages, but I've posted, I have it downloaded, and I'm gonna be sharing the PDF in the description. There's actually 3 different CIA docs that I want to share in the description. That
Nice.
it's pretty wild when you go through it. And I'll share these documents to be like, hey, look, dude, the CIA put in the government of Iran not once, but at least 5 times. Not just the CIA, England, and Russia and Israel. They've interfered directly and caused regime changes in this country at least 5 times since 1921. What are we doing?
There's really no excuse to 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 maintain your position. So there'd be no excuse for somebody to maintain their position and refuse to look at to read the reports, to read what's been declassified. Like you're just being willfully ignorant.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's really there's no justifiable, unless you read the reports and you say, well, that's bullshit. Okay, whatever. But you
Yeah, sure.
have to consider, if you don't consider it, then you're just being willfully ignorant.
It reminds me of one of the stages of denial of Christianity, like when you start questioning things and you're like, man, I really am not digging all that genocide, or, God has never really talked to me in a still small voice. One of the things that grips people, and I say keeps a lot of folks in the club, is the fear of hell. Like, well, if I'm wrong, that's a big price to pay. Like, if I'm wrong,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
really wrong. So you know what? Shut up. I rebuke you, Satan, in the name of Jesus. That's what we did. Like, I
Yeah.
rebuke you, devil. And I think it's almost like that fear that they have. I mean, because it's the same source of religious theological fear. If you go against Israel, you're going against God. You want to be cursed by God? I don't want to be cursed by God.
I don't want to be cursed by God.
I don't want to be cursed by God.
So you know who I'm going for.
Yeah. So where's my hat at?
But
There's
so then, and that's just one of the things that you realize you have to kind of buy off on if you're going to stay in the club.
Yeah.
Like, you have to recognize that you're. I think as painful as it is, I think you have to recognize that you're at least being used. Maybe
You're
not
be
manipulated. Maybe
Yeah,
not because I don't want to come across as arrogant. I don't want to come across
sure.
as though I know something you
Elite,
don't know.
hoity
Yeah,
toity, yeah.
not at all. I'm just saying, at least you're being used.
Well,
Maybe you choose to be an S-bomb.
well, I mean, the United States, and by proxy, it's citizens, because we are the United States. Our tax dollars are the United States. I mean, whether we like it or not, our tax dollars are the military jets and the aircraft carriers. That's us. Um, we are complicit in everything that they do that we think might be questionable. Like I said, if you're going to hold on to this, you at least have to admit that you're complicit in Gaza and what happened in Gaza, the destruction of that city. Yesterday, there was a new video posted of these children. There was a food drop off like a food cache that was dropped off in the middle of the city. These children were running to the food cache and they were all shot at. Doesn't show you who was shooting at them, but man, who's shooting at kids in Gaza right now?
Hmm.
That was released yesterday. My tax dollars are complicit in that. And for a long, long time, my theology was complicit in that. I would have come up with an excuse of why they had to do it. War is ugly. War is hell. But you know what? Ecclesiastes says there's a time for war. There's a time to
But you know
kill.
what else? You know what else? Uh, that's all through the Old Testament.
Sure.
So you really don't even have to justify it,
Yeah.
because why would
It's there.
the God of the Bible not be against the Israeli army shooting children? Because he commanded it several times
Several times.
previously.
Yeah. And I changed
And
not.
there's there's all kinds of ways you can justify it. You can try to justify it. You can say, well, God knew how evil they were, and so he killed them before they became, before they did more evil. Or you could be hardcore. I was kind of hardcore there for a while, where I was like, well, even if God kills people, he's God. He makes the rules, so he's
Yeah.
right. Um,
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to justify it. You don't have to go digging for a
yeah,
reasons to justify this, because it's already there. And yeah, you know what I mean? Like I said, I don't want to make people, I guess I don't mind making them uncomfortable. I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to willfully insult. I don't want to make anyone think that I'm
right.
insulting them. But man, maybe you should be uncomfortable about some theological stances. Maybe you should stand, at least, like I would say is healthy to do with all aspects of your personality and your identity, is to step back and say, do I really believe this? Because we're, you know, just classical psychology says that most of our, if not all of our identity markers come from someone else, come from
Well,
someone else. So yeah. So I mean, take a healthy look back and like, do I really believe this about marriage? Do I really believe this about personal freedom? Do I really believe this about guns? Do I really believe this about American sovereignty? You know what I mean? What that means?
hmm
Like American
hmm
exceptionalism. Do I really believe that?
there's there's a there's a lot of there's a lot of titles. There's a lot of ideas that just kind of come in the basket,
Uh-huh.
you know, that
Yeah, you're
you don't even have to you don't really even realize they're there. It's just part of the deal. It's a
welcome to the
package.
club. This is your uniform. This is what we do. This is what we believe.
Yeah.
There's lots in here. You don't have to look at it all, but it's all you
Don't
now.
waste your time. Hmm. Um, so ha- I know you've been on the train a little bit longer than I have. In some areas, I guess in some ways, I think I've maybe, in a theological perspective, I think that at one point I was farther down the road in terms of deconstructing, and then I think you kind of leapfrog.
I'd
Um,
say we're not the same. I don't think, which is fine. I don't think we're in the same place right now, you and
no,
I. No, I don't.
I've got some crazy ideas.
Can I be bold and make an assumption about you? You tell me if I'm right or I'm wrong.
Hey,
Oh man, we might want to cut some of this out.
oh
I'm gonna ask you some deep theological stuff.
yeah, you know what? I'm in the mood to just
Let it rip.
be honest. Let her go.
I think that I get the vibe sometimes from our conversations and just from like the what you're laying down and I'm picking up. I feel like you don't believe anymore that there's someone that hears you when you pray.
Correct.
Yeah. That makes me sad, but I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not there. But I think it I don't think I'm obviously not in the same place I was, as a little child. I think the thing that hears me when I pray is in me and is part of that radio station theory I have. Like I think
Yeah.
I can pray to Jesus. And I think if I'm in that frequency, I think there will be a deity in the the higher conscious and the collective consciousness that is something like Jesus that will hear me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like a frequency. And same thing with Santa Muerta. I love the specifically the Mexican interpretation of the goddess of death. Like I love Santa Muerta. I think she's cool. I'm into her. Um, yeah, I don't, I don't know how much I'm an open book about that stuff too, but, um, I could feel for a while that you don't believe anymore that there's someone that hears you.
But at the same time, I think the thing is it's not a one, it's not a someone. I think that, and I suspect, I don't really know, I don't have a clue. I suspect that whatever it is that we call God is ultimately the the consciousness of everything that's alive, of everything in the universe. I think that whatever we call God is the universe.
Yes.
And so, when I cry out, when I pray, I don't believe there's anyone listening to me. I don't believe there's anyone who hears me. But I do think that you in Alabama can feel my, whatever I've got going on. Not all the time, but
Right.
there are times you're like, man, I wonder what's up with Justin. And maybe you don't even say it. Maybe you think, oh, I hope he's doing well. And maybe in that way you pray for me.
Yeah.
And, when I think about, whoever, like, that's how I think, that's how I suspect it works. But a, I don't think that there's what I always believed was God.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not less than, I don't think it's less than that.
Right.
I think it's more than that. I think it's more than what I used to believe, because the
So do you
universe
think your
in
prayers have power then?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, because I think you can tap into it. I think that you can tap into uh, the frequency. I think is a really good way to describe it. That makes a lot of sense uh, in my mind.
I think it's all ultimately inside of you anyway. I think it's all inside
Yeah,
of you.
yeah, yeah. So whether it's, whether you want to call it God, whether you want to call it the devil, I
Yeah.
think that it's us. I think
Yeah.
that it's our psyche. I think that
But
it's
it's something more too because it's deep and it's in everyone.
yeah. And there is a collective consciousness, it'll say, but there's the my shadow self and your shadow self can our intentions can join together. Their intentions can join together just as much as our well wishes for each other. And
Which is one of the big points from the story of the Tower of Babel is that just like when Jesus said, "Where two or three or more are gathered, there I am also." Like when people connect together and get the same intention and they follow the same plan, man, there's power in that
yeah, and sometimes you feel that in a church service.
for sure.
Sometimes you feel that at a baseball game.
Yeah.
But that's what it is I think that you've got a group of people who have the same intention. They're gathered together, or they're scattered. But I think that there really is power in a prayer chain.
Yeah,
But it's
for
not
sure.
because but I don't think it's because God was like, okay, Nancy called. Yep, we're good. Cancel the cancer. Like,
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think about the idea of spiritual, maybe even take that word out of it, but beings that are beyond our comprehension that maybe our intentions, especially when we get together, our intentions can tap into and communicate with, like a spirit of war. Like maybe
oh,
there is like a classic characteristic that's been in part of war since the Greeks or since the our hunter gatherer days, or sexual desire, or greed, ambition.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
what
Yeah.
do you think that there could be something above us that is like an archetype of that maybe we could? Do you think there is like something that maybe has a consciousness above us?
This is gonna make me sound absolutely crazy.
Okay, I'm
But
here for it.
I get the sense that you could call them deities, you can call them spirits. I get the sense that that they're conjured by the consciousness of groups of people. And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is a spirit of fear can be conjured
Yes.
in certain atmospheres,
And it can take
and
hold.
it can take form. And I
Yeah.
think that spirit of fear, of sexual desire, of anger, of violence, whatever, I do think that energy can be so big that it could become what you would call a deity. It could become what you would call
Yeah.
a demon. Uh, and I think that it could be active. But do I think that it's and this is where I don't even know that it matters. Like, all of this is just so we can understand it. The whole purpose of religion is to give words to questions, right? Or
Yeah.
to give answers for
Yeah.
why do I do the things I do?
Yeah.
Why do I not do what I want to do? Why do I
Yeah.
feel guilty?
Religion
Why do I
exists for the same reason science does. It's to understand yourself and the world better, to know,
That's it.
to
That's
answer
it.
these questions we have.
And so it doesn't really matter if whatever the evil thing is, whether it's a demon that's hissing and red, whatever, or
Yeah.
it's an angel with wings. Neither of them are true. Both of them are just to help us understand. We came up with them to understand why there must be messengers of good, because I prayed for you and something happened.
So you're describing something kind of in your own way, and it's weird because I think this is almost a testament to like collective consciousness. You're describing something that I've heard described recently, like in the last couple months, by an author in this book of Jaden Stone, which is about South American deities, and this podcaster who's like a Hindu tantric yogi guy, but they both talk about this idea that you didn't say, but I'm going to connect, of these deities or spirits, whatever you want to call them. They described them as something that can almost go not extinct, but like dormant. They can go into hibernation and they can go like sink back into the primordial ooze until people like they're nothing without us or without someone who says that they are, whatever consciousness says that they are. They don't exist until people have need for them again. Like kind of like what's going on right now. You see it and like the zeitgeist of just the world, of people going, hey, I don't want any more war right now. 20 years ago, there weren't a lot of
Okay,
people that were
yeah.
going, I
That's
don't want any more war. And
that's a
so
great example.
that
And in 91, there was a 90 to 91, there was a spirit of
let's go
war.
kick their fucking ass. Yeah.
Yeah, America.
Yeah. So you're seeing, and if you could name those two, just war and not war, the moon and the sun, or Mercury and Venus, whatever. Back in the 90s, there was a time for Mercury, and so everyone was very Mercury. Well, Venus was gone. There was no need for Venus. Now there's a need for Venus. So all of a sudden, this Venus character of anti-war and open mind, and let's give it a second thought. Now all of a sudden, that's popping up, and Mercury or Mars, whatever I said, is taking a back seat. These guys both describe deities of like sinking back into the primordial ooze until they're needed again. So kind of like how animistic shamanism is making a resurgence with all these deconstructed Christians that are left out looking for something new, something that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. They're looking
Mm-hmm.
back at these. What did my ancestors believe? Which I think is a valid question. Like,
Yeah.
what did
And
my ancestors think before this weird Jewish cult?
before before the CIA
Yeah.
converted, everybody. But I think that's when you're talking about Mercury and Venus and the sun and the moon like that, it makes sense to me how they're just trying to explain the opposites. They're just trying to explain good and evil.
It's just
They're
a
trying to
name.
explain the shadow self.
Yeah.
And that's what all of so there's no sense really in trying to figure out, whether Baal was
Yeah.
a real what was that?
Baal was the
I mean,
northern storm god that Yahweh was in opposition against, and Yahweh was the southern storm god. They're both Canaanite deities.
and they're both depictions of our imagination to try to describe good and evil.
Right.
Like, and so, when
And to
we say they're,
justify our own exceptionalism, justify why we're special
yeah,
too.
because God's on our side, we're on
Yeah.
his.
And our God's
Uh,
right.
yeah, and our God said to kill everyone and take their shit.
You know,
So I'm
yeah,
gonna need that.
I'm gonna need that.
Again, I lost my train of thought. I feel like I was about to drop
You
some
were
fire.
you were about to lay a
Well,
bomb.
uh,
Well, you're talking
what
about sun
were
and the moon. You're talking about how that's all just versions of explaining, of naming something in need, or naming.
yeah, trying to explain, or trying to give shape to the ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it'll come back.
But also, yeah, also, and I think something that's been manifested in our political identities, like definitely over the last 25 years, 25 years, is that it's not just white and black. It's not just the sun and the moon. Like, I'm not just left or just right. There's actually a whole big set scale of everything. And I don't even have to, I can go this way, that way on
Yeah,
everything.
and over the past couple days, maybe you've gone a little bit more left,
Yeah.
and but yeah, you don't have to. There's a whole palette.
Yeah. And so this rejection of, like, this word kind of means this sometimes and sometimes not, but like the duality, the right and wrong, yin and yang of the universe. There's kind of been a rejection of that in some ways. I'm talking about the good guys and bad guys argument, the white and black
Yeah.
argument. There's been a rejection of that. And I think you can apply that to all aspects of your identity, even the theological aspects, especially if you're willing to take an honest look at it. Be like, hey, obviously, this is one of the things that led to our deconstruction, or one of the things is the recognition of some of the bad stuff that God did in the Bible, or some of the not the things that we don't think is okay today, that he straight up commanded everyone to do in the Bible. And we've talked about that list before, but the highlights are genocide and sex slavery and
Right.
right, yeah. Yeah. And human sacrifice. Also, that religion is built on
That's an
human
important.
sacrifice. That's an
That's an
important one.
important one.
Starting
In
with
fact,
that old guy Abraham.
that's
Really starting in Genesis.
central to the story. Human sacrifice.
The first story, the very first story, talks about blood is the atonement for sin. And the first guy in our line, Abraham, his first story was sacrificing his child,
which he was
he was
pleased to do.
he was ready to do. And
Yeah.
there, Dad Over Dogma talked about this a couple weeks ago, but there are some Jewish lines that say he actually did kill his son Isaac at the thing, because in some of the original Hebrew translations it says, and he did as was promised, and then Abraham came down from the mountain. Like, it never says they both came down from the mountain, but that was like, there are some trains of thoughts even in our own line that say, yeah, he did the deed and God bless him for it. There are other stories of human sacrifice in the Bible where the guy went through with it.
So I don't know that this was the case in this scenario, but one of the things that really caused me to reconsider the authority of the Bible is learning that stuff like that, theologies that we've come up with, can be based on somebody at some point saying, "I don't like that story. Let's have Isaac come down with him."
The perfect example is the difference between Islam and Judaism. In the Quran, um, it's Ishmael that he takes up to sacrifice, and God spares him at the end. Like, in Islam, the Quran swaps Isaac and Ishmael because Ishmael's their guy. Ishmael's their
Yeah,
descendant. And in the
yeah,
Quran, he sends Isaac away with Sarah by themselves, and he raises Ishmael as a son, and Ishmael's the mighty conqueror, and the whole story is about Ishmael. So it all depends on what part of the story you want to change to fit your specific agenda.
Yeah.
What it comes down
But
to,
but the thing is, and this is what's so, again, I can find myself getting angry if I not careful. Somebody else, I'm following somebody else's agenda because somebody
yes,
else
you don't even know
cent-
that it's somebody else's agenda.
centuries ago decided that this is really how we want it.
Yeah,
And you know, for my entire life, my entire spiritual life, the Bible was the authority,
you're right.
inerrant, infallible, complete Word of God.
Yeah,
And then, so once you kind of lose that or get rid of that, which sounds terrible, I know, but
right,
once you drop that, now you don't really have to make the pieces fit, and now you can let them be the shape I think they're supposed to be, which is
right.
to say, a story of why we do the things we do.
Bart Ehrman talks about that. Dr. Bart Ehrman, he's specifically a New Testament guy, but he talks about and he's a self-professed atheist now, but if you find, like, if you dwell on the differences between Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and there are a lot of differences, actually, there's a lot of direct contradictions in timeline and like story and people, places, and things. Like, there's a lot of direct contradictions. But if you focus on those, you end up missing the story of what Mark was trying, or the author of the book of Mark was trying to tell about this guy that really existed by all, by a lot of accounts, and even atheist historians will say this guy named Jesus really existed, and they really did kill him, and it was because of his extreme religious beliefs. What those beliefs were exactly is kind of tricky because it's all second, third hand stories at that point, the ones that were written down. But you miss the forest for the trees if all you want to do is focus on, what the contradictions. If you want to get too far into the left or the deconstruction zone and say, look, this Bible is useless, it's all based on lies, it was all manipulated, it was all a social construct, well, you miss the gold that's in there.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a lot of good stuff. It's shaped the world, right? Mother Teresa was a Christian. She did a lot of good stuff based on a theology that you want to shit all over. You know, there's been a
hmm
lot of good people do a lot of good things in the name of Christ, in the name of Christianity, and also
well,
in the name of Islam, and also in the name of Judaism, and definitely in Hinduism and Jainism and whatever. Uh,
yeah,
if you throw the baby out with the bathwater, you miss a lot of good stuff.
for sure. In some cases, but maybe in many cases, I think that we can give people too much of our energy and thought
And
and
power, definitely.
selves power, uh, just because of of our DNA, just because
Right,
of, you know, if you were separated at birth, you wouldn't know who this person is. Like,
right.
so yeah, I think, if family members are estranged, especially if it's consensual and you just don't see them, I think that's
Yeah,
okay, and I think that's even healthy and maybe even good.
yeah,
Like, it's
sure.
it's hard, it's kind of hard to say, but I think that, like, some friendships, maybe, you can be best friends with somebody for two
Dude,
years and then they just fade away, and that's okay. Like, it's
the
not
Navy,
personal. It's just,
yeah, they got their own stuff going on. The Navy broke my heart so many times because you're at a command for 4 years, sometimes less, but usually about 3 or 4 years is how long you're at a command before you shift to another command. And man, I've always been like an honest, real, whatever. I definitely have my flaws, but I've always been like hard on a sleeve kind of guy. Like, I'll let you know how I feel, and I accept you the way you are, and I'm going to empathize with you immediately, especially if we're in the same command and we're, potentially going in harm's way together, or we're doing this tough job together. Dude, I don't, I got a closer relationship with you than I do my own family, than a lot of them. Um, I've always been like that. Maybe that was from the group home too, or whatever. and the church definitely fostered those feelings. Um, on the George Washington, man, I had a couple best friends, like people who I definitely called brother, people who I definitely, would die for, and all that was true. But some of them I haven't spoken to in 20 years now, or
Yeah.
18, 17 years. And no, there's nothing hard. There's no ill will. But at one point, this was my best friend on earth.
Yeah.
And man, it broke my heart. That happened a couple, like I said, every once in a while to where you never fully cut it out, but you definitely start to learn to put up barriers and put up some boundaries and put up some safeguards. Like, yeah, sure, you're a good guy. You know, he might not be around. He might have something else going on. He might let me down. I know I let people down. You know,
Yeah.
he might do this one thing that's my unforgivable thing, and then I got to cut him off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they do that.
I, I like to think of it as like when you're on a road trip and
Yeah.
you've got a pack of cars that you're all speeding together or whatever, you're
Yeah.
all just traveling together, and all of a sudden somebody takes off on I-75, and like it's not personal, it's just they're going a different way.
Vaya
Or
con Dios.
maybe you catch up at a pit stop or something, or
Yeah.
I don't know, but I, I've tended to I'm always I'm always on guard for like being abandoned, right? Of
Uh,
being left. So I'm always kind of watching to watch for signs that it's about to happen. And so I'm really trying to focus on the fact that when that happens, it's just that they're just going different places. You're doing
yeah.
different things in life, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, to be fair, there may be people that watch this that say, yeah, these guys are they're on a different highway, uh, and sign off. I That's one of the reasons I've been pretty guarded about my current beliefs or my current ideas,
Yeah.
because I do expect a fair number of my contacts, and it's so stupid. Like people people that I otherwise wouldn't talk to,
Yeah.
otherwise wouldn't see on social media or whatever. I don't I don't want people to be like he's a going to hell, he's a heathen, he's a whatever. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess if you control it, then it's kind of it's kind of like this is funny. I was telling my brother this morning actually. I started watching the Thief in the Night trilogy. Did you ever watch this?
Uh-uh.
Oh, they were movies.
Oh, it
Yeah,
was before Left Behind.
yeah. It was back in the 70s, I think.
I never
I
saw
was
them. I've seen clips of them and references to them. I never watched them.
I was traumatized by them. And so I started watching them again last night. And I told my brother, I was like, I'm just going to abuse myself. I'm going to
Yeah.
traumatize myself and take ownership. I'm going to own that.
Okay.
I don't know why I told you that story.
No, no, that's good. You're reclaiming some trauma.
Yeah.
In Wichita, Teapot was there during the No Kings parade. Did you go to that?
Didn't go to that. Why would I go to a parade? We don't, we haven't had a king for a couple hundred years.
Right, right. So what's the spirit? What are they protesting then in that No Kings movement?
Apparently they don't want kings. I don't know. I don't like listen, I'm farther left than I've ever been in my entire life.
Uh-huh.
Right. But that's just stupid.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say this.
I take it back. I don't understand it. That's what I should say is I don't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, that's better. That's more
Thank you. I'm
real.
grown.
Yeah,
And
that's a
by the
good.
way, I just noticed that I'm wearing a Bad Religion shirt, and we've been talking about Bad Religion this whole time. That
Yeah.
was purely coincidental.
Yeah. Yeah. I've kind of like what you were saying. I've realized this about some things, like no matter how far left or crazy I think I'm getting, like, oh boy, I'm getting way far out there. Like I'm a pinko comic compared to what I used to think. Um, I'm still extremely far right compared to
There's all.
a lot of people.
Just remember, Teapot is always going to be on your left.
Tupac is always going to be on the left. But I
He'll
don't want
always
to.
be on your left shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to be the guy right here. Yeah. So I'm no matter how far crazy I think I'm going, like, ooh, I'm wearing my
No, the
Tevas out
risky.
in public. I'm wearing a pink bracelet. What are people going to think? But yeah, also boomer. You're doing all this shit. Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So we had that out here. Have you guys had any like ice demonstrations or anti-ice?
So
Wouldn't it be
man,
kind of funny if the law enforcement did like protests if there was an ice?
so this is
Never mind.
something. Well, I don't know. Yeah, this is something
It
that.
was good. There's a
Oh,
little bit of a delay all of a sudden, and I'm not sure why.
huh.
It
I'm
might
on
be my.
I'm on Wi-Fi. I think we're just interrupting each other.
That could be it.
um. Oh man, now I lost it. Shucks, I was about to go somewhere. Oh well.
Well, you were talking about wearing, getting a little bit risky with your Tevas in public and fanny pack, and you're a boomer.
Yeah, there was something I had teed up in the back that I was about to really cork off, but it's gone.
Oh, I was asking about the ice
Oh,
demonstrations.
dude. So, talking about things that Trump is letting us down on. We could cut like 30 minutes out and go right back to where we started in the beginning. Um, so full transparency, I was a Trump supporter um up until just a couple days ago. I think my last straw was Iran. You know, he turned on Tulsi Gabbard and is fully supporting Israel, whatever that means for now. He says he's going to fully support Israel and their war against Iran. Um he it's done nothing that we wanted him to do.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, I guess the borders, but even then, the deportations, he's doing it wrong. We said we want the criminals gone, not the fathers that have been here for 20 years, not the workers, not the construction guys. Obviously, let's give them a path. We want the violent people gone. They're doing raids on elementary schools. They're doing
Are they
raids.
really?
Yeah, that was happening in Georgia. We were getting emails about it. They're doing raids like Home Depot in the parking lots, which was, a stupid funny thing that there were skits about back in the early 2000s, but
Yeah, I remember that.
that's not what we
Yeah.
wanted. You know what I mean?
No.
Those aren't the people that we wanted deported, and that's what they're doing. Yeah, we didn't want any more wars. We didn't want you to go full totalitarian, start deporting people. They're deporting people that have like different political people that are here legally on green cards and visas, student visas that write an op-ed that's against the war against Gaza. We're getting deported. Like that happened.
Hmm.
That's not what we voted for, man. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know when it's time to say like when I would accept "I told you so" from the other side, because I still think he's better than Kamala Harris. I'm glad that the border's
Yeah. No.
closed. I think there's
Yeah.
some social sanity.
I had that I almost said that verbatim to one of my kids. I don't remember who it was. That yeah, this is a disaster,
Sure.
but but
Yeah,
there's it's not a Kamala Harris disaster,
that's right.
and that's nobody's fault but theirs.
That's right. This presidency was his to ruin, and that's what he's doing right now. He's
Yeah,
going
yeah,
bad on
well, yeah.
everything and everyone.
Have at it.
Man, he's not
Um,
setting JD Vance up for good after this. Unless JD
but
Vance like turns on him hardcore.
that would be a smart play right now.
It's what Pence did.
Um, so but what do you think about the demonstrations? Like, I generally, like, I get I guess I get the purpose of a demonstration. You
Yeah, I
want
think it's a pretty
people to
American thing to do.
see, you want people to feel your position. You want people to see how many supporters you've got. Like, how big it is. But obviously, you can't be looting. You can't be smashing windows. You can't be lighting shit on fire. You can't be
I
destroying cop cars. You can't, like, and it
It's
just
not a
seems
good
like,
sign. If your message is that you're protesting the ICE raids, you're protesting the U.S. government kicking you out of the United States, you're protesting their violent way of doing it. You're protesting their extreme way of doing it. I think setting cop cars on fire and waving the Mexican flag is not a great look. Like, I don't think you're adding a lot of credibility to your cause. Now, I had this ready too, teed up, because I thought you were going to say that. Everyone talks about the Boston Tea Party as the first major battle in the American Revolution. The Boston Tea Party was a violent riot, and the redcoats that shot and massacred the protesters were the police of their time, and they were being physically attacked. I guarantee you they feared for their life. There was a violent mob setting ships on fire, tarring and feathering English officers, and throwing up, smashing goods, looting and the tea and throwing it into the bay. Like, that's the Sunday school version of what happened. Like, they tarred and feathered and threw their tea into the bay to protest the tax or whatever. That was a violent riot. That
hmm,
was Antifa. And I'm not condoning
oh
that.
wow,
I'm not
yeah,
condoning it.
well,
I think they're shitheads.
but but that there's at least a there's at least a I'd say a good sized constituent in the conservative right that would praise the like,
Absolutely.
they would say hell yeah, and we'll do
Hell
it again.
yeah. That's right.
But I don't. I mean, I've never heard it described in those terms.
I got that from, that's not my creation. I can't remember the credit, but it was from one of the leftists. Like, I follow some kind of lefty Instagram pages because they're pretty good on some stuff. And
Yeah,
they put that in context for me. I was like, holy shit, that's right. And also, the guy that I've thrown this out there, the first guy to die who was killed in the Boston Massacre, the first man to be murdered. So technically, the first man to die for the American Revolution was a half black. His mother was a slave, half Cherokee guy named Crispus Attucks. And he was a Muslim, half black, half Indian Muslim. Was the first guy to die for America in a violent riot. That is what everyone's saying that shouldn't be happening, and I agree that shouldn't be happening in California. That's what was happening there
hmm.
in
So
1775 or whatever.
what would be what's the best, I guess, best case scenario, or like what happens after?
Well, I mean, it would have been good if he would have done what he said. If Because I don't agree with lighting cars on fire. I don't agree with throwing bricks. I think that is deadly force. And even though that sheriff in Florida said it kind of stupidly, and a lot of people attacked what he said, he's right. You throw a brick at a cop car, dude, that's deadly force. You can expect to get
Yeah,
shot.
and that's something that we've touched on before, but just it's just worth saying again that the way the laws work, the way the Constitution is written, is a police officer has the authority to kill you.
Kill you. That's
And
right.
I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm saying that
It's
if
there.
an officer is going to arrest someone and that person resists arrest, the officer can use one level of force higher than the person resisting, up to and including lethal force.
I,
And
I
so, good.
I once saw a sergeant arrest someone because their address wasn't updated on their license. And
Was he a sergeant at the time?
yeah, he sure was. And he said, I have probable cause for your arrest. Step out of the car. And the guy said, well, what is it? And he said, I have probable cause for your arrest.
Must have been a misdemeanor.
But I mean, if push came to shove, I don't think this would have gone down that way. I know it wouldn't have. But like
Yeah.
in another person's mind, that could have ended in deadly force. Justifiable by the law.
Justifiably. Yeah. And so I think it's important to keep that in context. One, like I'm not saying we should change it. I'm not, you know, I don't know I'm not sure how to handle it, but I'm not saying we should change it. But at the same time, uh man, that's
It's definitely worth some thought. Some it's worth some consideration.
and so like when you see
Holy
videos
shit.
of Michael Brown or
Oh,
whoever,
fuck. I just tried to step on
un,
a black recluse a black widow barefoot, and I missed it.
is that the equivalent? Is that equivalent to like getting stung by a scorpion and not dying, or like
No,
handling rattlesnakes?
it's the equivalent of me being stupid and
Um,
not finishing the job. What were you saying?
the whole thing.
No, I mean that's something worth considering. You like
Oh,
saying,
like when you see videos of like Michael Brown or whoever,
mm-hmm.
chances are that like if he's resisting arrest, that officer has no duty to retreat.
Yeah.
If and I hate to say it
By some
because
interpretations of the law, he's commanded not to.
yeah, and so do I think that someone should die over uh, drugs or stolen property or whatever?
Not
No,
paying cigarette tax. That's what happened in New York.
but man, like you got to understand that yeah, the officer has no duty to
So
retreat.
that's a perfect example, man. It's probably worth a goog. I remember seeing videos of the guy he killed the obese black guy with a really bad rear naked choke. You remember that?
Yeah, yeah,
And it is because the guy was selling loose cigarettes out in front of in front of a convenience store, and the guy in the convenience store reported him to the police. He's not paying his cigarette tax, which is a big thing. I really all over the world or all over the U.S., but they really enforce it up north for some reason. They're big on cigarette
yeah,
taxes.
yeah. Did you ever see those posts about loads of cigarettes?
Yeah,
Like,
fucking
cool,
nerds. Yeah,
sweet.
uh,
I'm gonna go ahead and look for meth. Good job on the cigarettes.
yeah. Good job on the smokes, fucking nerd. But he arrested that guy, and the guy was, I guess, resisting or doing something to where the officer felt justified by doing a weird rear naked choke and was laying on top of him, kinda. And that was the first time I had heard of that term, something asphyxiation, where it's
Positional
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 asphyxiation,
asphyxiation. Mhm.
where they can people can suffocate to death, and it's the same principle as getting an actual choke in, where someone could breathe, but the blood's cut off from their brain, so they're going out no matter what. Um,
Yeah,
that's what happened to this guy, and there was enough blood to get shut off from his heart or his brain for a long enough time where it killed him.
and it doesn't take long.
Doesn't take long,
It takes
especially
about. I mean, you could probably get somebody out in a chokehold in about 7 seconds
for sure.
for positional asphyxia, especially for somebody that's heavier.
You can't move them. You don't know to
Yeah,
move them. They're breathing.
yeah,
They're breathing.
yeah.
Yeah.
There was a video or it was a documentary on what was the one? What was the real big story?
George Floyd.
George Floyd. Yeah, geez. Um, there was a documentary that I watched on that, and it was unsettling how easily I could see that being a routine, that, like from the call to the car stop to the interaction. Like I've had those conversations in that exact scenario so many times. And
Dude.
all it all it would have taken is for one guy to resist arrest.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to be in this position because you're like, man, that sucks. I don't like, nobody wants that. Nobody would ever want that result.
That I think
Yeah.
that's why there is merit to the argument of reform, of police reform, and the whole judicial system reform. Like there
Yeah.
should be, man. And if you hear certain historians talk about this, and a lot of like credible historians, the founding fathers never. Some historians say that the founding fathers, like Thomas Jefferson, never expected the Constitution to be the founding legal doctrine 100 years into America. They thought that we would have improved and created something else.
Evolve.
Yeah, they thought
Yeah.
we would have evolved into something else. And so, man, I am a constitutionalist. Like, I honestly am. I believe in the validity and not sanctity, but man, at one point in my life, it would have been near sanctity of the Constitution. And man, it's worth looking at. It's worth
Yeah.
giving a second glance at now. Some things.
Well, consider like even with the justice system, prison is, aside from violent people, in which case you need to keep them away from other people.
Yeah.
But aside from violent offenders, prison just doesn't seem like it obviously doesn't work,
No,
and
it
it's
doesn't
so
reform anyone.
expensive, and it generally causes more problems than it fixes. So
Police
it
unions are the
creates,
reason marijuana is still illegal in the States. And it's even the reason that THC 8 and Delta 8 and all that stuff is becoming illegal again, is because of
you
police
don't
unions and prison unions.
you don't think it's 'cause pharmaceuticals?
Well, them too, but the largest like introducer of these bills has been the prison unions. The prison unions are writing these bills and introducing them to members of Congress to pass. It's the prison unions.
I said for a long time when we were working interdiction, I used to say that we could quote unquote win the war on drugs. We could stop drugs from coming into the country if we, or at least most of them. We could, if we really wanted to. We we could have the technology, we could have the infrastructure, the manpower to do it. But if you were to do that, you would we would lose so much money out of our economy. There would
Sure.
be so many industries that would go they would
It,
go bankrupt.
it would
That
lose the
they would go,
justification for so many officers,
and you would lose entire agencies. You would
entire
lose,
agencies, and definitely entire task force overnight.
yeah,
Overnight, you would lose task force.
and on top of that, you would lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in seizures,
Yes.
cash.
Millions of
Now,
dollars of seizures.
yeah, $100,000 car stops is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess maybe I need to reconsider. I've always I think I support asset forfeiture.
I do not.
I have to think about it.
We talked about this on a podcast.
Only in the sense that because it's illegal. I personally, I think that all drugs should be legal. I
Right.
don't think that's a legal issue. I think that
That's a moral
if
issue.
you want to use, if you're going to use crack, going to prison isn't going to solve that problem.
No. R. Kelly just overdosed in prison and was rushed to the emergency room a couple days ago. Saw it in the news.
Yeah. So mental health or whatever community services we need, but we need to figure out something better than prison.
Yeah.
And we need to figure out something better than, because this person is an adult and they're using something that I don't think they should use, we should take away their freedom and lock them up.
Well, and especially like when it becomes real transparent when you see who makes money from it, and we've kind of outlined a little bit of that, who makes money from it, lobbyists and
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can I just say too that I feel like we've got some skin in the game. I feel like you and I specifically, I think have an opinion worth hearing on this subject.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't think it's too much to say. Like, we've seen a lot of this stuff play out, and
Yeah.
we've seen kind of the behind the scenes and the, uh, I mean, I've taken money from people.
Yeah.
I've seized it.
Yeah.
I've seized property from people. Uh, I've put people in prison for having, I mean, I didn't put them in prison, but you know what I mean? Like, I arrested people, took away their freedom for having
Drugs.
essentially plants or
Yeah.
drugs, you know, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But something's got to give.
Well, I also went to war in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, good
I've done
example.
I've done a couple things that I thought were right at the time, but in retrospect, I see that I was doing it for a noble reason, and so were you. You were doing it for a noble reason, but in retrospect, I was a pawn, just like
Hmm.
my Western evangelicalism, just like, you know,
Hmm.
in short term, voting for Trump this time. I got him elected to do everything that I was the opposite of why I elected him. Yeah, my your intentions were right. We've both evolved and learned stuff since then, but we're being used. We're being played. And
Yeah,
there's a lot of people that are still being played. And that's
yeah,
not whatever.
and
I hope there is reform.
and people people die. People have lost their lives, really on both sides. Um, I hate to even equate, criminal. Man, I don't know how. I'm not sure how to process that. But what I'll say is that officers have died enforcing these laws that only exist, maybe not only, but that primarily exist to keep people rich and in power. And uh,
Well, especially because you're right because it only serves people financially, and those are vampires. Like they make their living off of human suffering, people going to prison. It only exists because we know it doesn't work. Like it only exists for that. Because it's not reforming anyone. We had the prohibition on alcohol. This is a 40 or 50 year now prohibition on plants and other substances, but we already had a prohibition. And that's what created the organized crime. Families of the Italian mafia and the Jewish mafia and the Irish mafia. These outlaws like the narco traficantes of today, the cartels, that said, "Hey, we know you're going to do it, so either you can buy it from the grocery store legally, or you can buy it in this speakeasy back town. Either way, you're getting it. The speakeasy's
mhm,
cutting it with gasoline, and the back alley guy's cutting it with fentanyl. But either way, you're still going to buy your cocaine." We could invest in a better community. We could invest in better opportunities to divert these give them other options than drugs from the beginning. We could invest because
mhm.
that's where you have to change is the children.
Yeah, and man, this was a hard pill to swallow, um, because I always kind of denied it. I denied that it was racially motivated. But what's going to happen to those kids when their dad is in prison?
We learned that in the
They're going.
Tuskegee experiment. Isn't that fucked up? That was a CIA plant, the study to learn what would happen if we remove the father. Oh, the whole
Yeah.
community goes into chaos and they're easier to control. We can arrest the whole village if we remove the father. We learned that in the Tuskegee experiments and then
Hmm.
implement it in LA, San Francisco, New York, later on, Wichita, Oklahoma City. That's where it came to. Even the
Yeah.
CIA was far away from it at that point, but it's the babies of manipulation.
Yeah. And so you've got that component, but then you've also got the white kids too. Like, removing parents from the family is going to have an unintended, hopefully unintended, but it's going to
Yeah.
have consequences far beyond uh, the 10 years, 15 years of the prison sentence.
Oh yeah. Um, Man, I'm honestly, I can't ever express how lucky and truly blessed I am, which is one of the reasons why I still hold on to the idea of God. But dude, I was raised with that. My father was a felon. My father was a felon in prison when I was born. One of my first memories is visiting him in prison. Um, I went to that group home with a bunch of kids like me without any stable family, life of chaos, life of crime. Went to the military. I should have been a statistic. And in some ways, I guess I kind of was, but I've come out of it extremely blessed and way more fortunate than others. Um, I defied the odds. Most of the people have no choice. Like most of the people who grew up where I grew up are still there or in prison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's, obviously I don't know, who knows what kind of rolls of the dice had to happen for us to end up in different scenarios. But I was, I always kind of had this idea, even when I worked in NARCs, but uh, I was thinking about this a while back. I saw a guy, he was an old crusty guy. You would expect to see him somewhere in South City. Uh, Clearly, you look at him, you and I would look at him and say that guy knows his way around a meth pipe.
Uh-huh.
Like that dude, he's a criminal. That's what you would say.
Yeah.
But I noticed he was just kind of hobbled up and stuff, and I was thinking, you know, it would not be too many steps for somebody to get hurt doing a side job, doing whatever. Maybe they let mow lawns for a living or whatever it is. They can't go to the doctor, or they don't go to the doctor, or their doctor, whatever, prescribes something or doesn't do something, and they end up with an addiction,
Uh-huh.
or they end up needing or receiving painkillers, and now they can't get them. What is that guy going to do?
Yeah.
Like,
He
it's
wants to
not,
live without pain.
that's it. And I that same scenario, that could be me or you very easily.
Oh,
It could
well.
be any one of us. Just change a couple scenarios. Let's say that you don't have, for you went to the group home, you found family, but like for the statistic,
Yeah.
just a couple changes. You don't have.
I know him. I know him. I can name him by name. Can you hear me? My audio just sounded weird.
Yes, because I moved the
Oh,
test.
yeah,
Is
I
that
hear
better?
you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I bumped the thing and it came unplugged. Um, but
Yeah. There's people that didn't join the military, and I joined the military, and that was the only difference. And they eventually went to prison because they
yeah,
didn't have the military. Or, I mean, I went to the group home. There's kids that didn't have the church to manipulate their mother like I had to sending me into the group
yeah.
home, and
Well,
they're even worse off. Yeah.
what do you think would be a reasonable replacement for prison?
Uh, there has to be a complete overhaul of the justice system, but like I said, it has to as replacing the prison almost has nothing to do with prison. It has to do with opportunity and
Hmm.
environment for children, for the
So
youth.
are you saying that you could almost make it obsolete? Like
Yeah.
you wouldn't need to
Well,
find a replacement because you wouldn't need it.
there's always going to be a need for a prison based on violence. Like there's a book that I'm forgetting in my mind right now, but I used to quote it all the time, is by this dude. Anyway, he basically laid out a bunch of really good evidence that said once someone is violent, they're always going to have a propensity for violence. Like once someone is violent, it commits violent crime outside of exigent circumstances like crimes of passion or uh really crimes of passion, or sometimes he said you could justify like intoxicated violence, like outside of intoxicated violence or crimes of or violence of passion. Once someone robs someone and gets money, they're always going to have that in their pocket now, even if they go to prison. Oh, I know if I get out and things get really tough, I can just put my hand in my pocket. I know that's a way I can always do it. Once someone is violent, you almost have to ostracize them off into a, and he was actually, he described a prison colony, like put them, like almost like make a city where they, you know, I'm not saying you have to kill them. They can still be productive. They can still go out there and have jobs and, you know, produce for the economy, produce for society, but they can't, it has to be, they have to be cut off. Once they're violent, they're violent. And an extreme focus on reform for all other crimes, focusing on the children, and opportunities the biggest answer to most economic crimes and most
Yeah.
drug crimes is actually the economic situation, like the
Yeah.
opportunity and the environment. So yeah, there's always going to be a need for a prison for violent people. Um, you can do like the French Foreign Legion and also give them a military branch. Like, hey, if you're really crazy, you can just come over here. We'll keep you on this island. But
You know, yeah, I was thinking you could get like a suicide hotline and a homicide hotline and like just give them each other's numbers, right?
oh
And
man,
and both would be or like you could, nah, never mind.
we were talking about the prison colony or separating people. The answer is opportunity for economics, and yeah, economics and opportunity for childhood, like as early as possible. Take them
Yeah.
away from addiction and away. This guy was outlining like take them away from their parents, like if because almost all of behavior and almost your entire identity, like we talked about before, you get from the people around you. Going back to the
Yeah.
crib, like from
Yeah.
breastfeeding, even you learn from the people around you. So if there's a family that is a family of criminals and drug addicts, the best answer to save that baby is to take him out of there or take her out of there.
Do
And
you remember the story that I told you about the guy that I was his realtor?
uh-uh.
He Okay, so
Well,
I
I'm
got a
thinking,
call from
yeah, no,
I'll just tell the story and eliminate the names.
the
I got a call
suspense.
from a guy that said, "Hey, I've got this guy I work with that is looking for a realtor. You work for me. You did a great job. I wonder if you'd work with him." I said, "Yeah, for sure." He said, "Okay, well, he's a little bit of a he's kind of rough around the edges. He did some time, but he's a hard worker, good dude." It's like, "Oh yeah, no problem." And he gave me his name, and I was like, "No shit." Uh, we had done a special operation on him. He was a burglar, and he was a drug addict. Like he
Do
was
I know this guy?
you
Did he have
maybe if
long
I said his
hair? Did he have long black hair when he always, oh man, I don't want to give it away.
brown.
Was he a Catholic?
Oh no, 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 no.
He always
No,
did
I
the
know who
sign
you're
of the
talking about.
okay.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. No, he was a prolific burglar. We had done a whole operation. It was really pretty cool. We were doing like we were chasing him, going like 120 miles an hour in rented cars down K15. It was wild. But anyway, he doesn't recognize me. I recognize him. We're we're I'm showing him houses, and he's got like a 7-year-old kid that recognizes there's wire next door, and he's asking his dad about like taking the wire. Like 7 years old, and I'm like, how does a 7-year-old know about steel and copper?
Oh yeah.
Only, only because that's
His,
that's what he's around.
and that 7 year
So
old is never going to not know he could go steal copper. He's always gonna
yeah.
know. If
So
he needs it, there it is.
yep. And so like, my 13-year-old right now, if he needs money, that's not in his playbook.
That's not his
Not
radar.
because not because he's a better kid, but
Exactly.
because
Not because he's any
that
better.
it's just not in his playbook.
Yeah.
Whereas crime is now an option for this kid.
Yeah. Sure is.
So you gotta fix it in the family. I think you've gotta fix mental health. I think you've got to provide opportunity.
Yeah, you want to make less, that's how Joe Rogan phrases it. You want to make less losers. You want to make less losers in life. And not as a, I mean people who are losing at life. You want to
Yeah.
how do you get rid of losers? Well, they need money. You know, some of them don't have a cost a living, you know what I mean, a living allowance. So they have in their mind and based on their experience, their universe, they have no other option because even McDonald's won't hire a felon with no GED. You know what I mean? Maybe that's not
Yeah.
true, but that's definitely
Or
the projection.
or or maybe they made some stupid decisions and uh maybe their appearance
Yeah.
doesn't doesn't help them get any jobs, uh I don't know. I just think that, like you said, we got to reform the whole thing.
It's got to be a system. It's got to be a system, a non-violent revolution. Like it has to be a reformation even.
Yeah.
Um, dude, I'm having a lot of fun with my solo project podcast.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm I'm
How
releasing.
many episodes how many episodes deep?
There's only one out. There's only one out. I have a
Okay.
second one that I'm editing. So the first one was on Christopher Columbus, which is really cool. All this stuff, like I have general knowledge. Like
Drop that name for the listener.
the podcast is called Exhibit A,
Okay.
and the first episode is called The Myth of Columbus.
Okay.
I'm doing a series called It's All Propaganda. The Exhibit A is a conspiracy theory podcast, but I'm not talking about Bigfoot or Mothman or, you know what I mean, underground reptilian people. I'm talking about stuff with receipts. Like I like CIA.gov documents, but also some like actual history. My first episode was on Columbus, and I kind of just I learned a lot. That's what I was going to say is like I have a lot of general knowledge from stuff that I've kept in the back of my half Rain Man mind over the years.
Beyond 1492 and selling the ocean blue.
Right. So I got to look deep into that and I realized I might drop some bombs on people here. Christopher Columbus obviously didn't discover North America. He never went to North America. He didn't discover anything. He wasn't even Italian. He was Portuguese. The whole story is wrong. His mother might have been Jewish. Actually, like absolutely, his mother was Jewish. She was a converso. She was forced to convert to Christianity, basically by law, by the Spanish government at the time. And in the year 1492, the month and almost the day that he left, Spain introduced, they were wild back then. Spain had a chip on their shoulder to prove that whatever. But they expelled all Jews and Muslims from the Iberian Peninsula. Spain did. Like, hey, if you're a Jew or you're Muslim, you're out of here. That is the day that Christopher Columbus set sailed to discover the Caribbean islands. Was the day that Spain kicked out all Jews. His mother was a Jew. Half of his crew was like self-confessed, professed Sephardic Jews, like actual Jews from the motherland or from the Mediterranean. Um, his dad, so even his like Italian father was a Knights Templar. The person that they say was probably his actual father was a member of the Portuguese royal family who was like a grand master of the Knights of Christ. And the Knights of Christ inherited everything from the Templars after the Pope killed the Templars, like the Pope turned on the Templars. Well, in Portugal, the Knights of Christ inherited everything from them, and that was his actual father, was like the grand master of this secret union. They had pieces of a map that was later discovered like in the 1900s but had been created hundreds of years before that, called the Perry-Rees map. The Perry-Rees map had all of North and South America, the coast on it, had the coast South America connecting to Antarctica, and had like green trees and bushes on Antarctica, had North Africa covered in jungle. They're like, oh, this had to be from thousands of years ago because that was the time that Antarctica's coast was back then. And they're like, oh, well, that's impossible. So it's dismissed wholeheartedly. Well, the myth is, and like the historical, I don't know what the word would be, the lure is that the Templars discovered all of this from the Tomb of Solomon, because that was where the Templar headquarters was in Israel whenever they conquered Israel and made it basically a European kingdom, was the Temple of Solomon. And that's where he had like his famous map that, or library that was supposed to be bigger than the Library of Alexandria, had all these maps. And the lore is that Solomon sent these explorers all over the world, which kind of matches up
Wow.
with shit that I heard in Sunday school. But
Yeah.
even like the Mormons claim kind of piggyback on some of this stuff, that Solomon sent Jewish explorers all over the world. Well, there's obviously some fairy tale hokey poke in that, but there's this map called the Perry Rees map that has coastlines that had to be thousands of years ago. Like by the way that the ice caps melt and refreeze over thousands of years. Um, Christopher Columbus absolutely was not Italian. He never wrote in Italian. No one ever heard him speak in Italian. He spoke excellent Spanish and fluent Portuguese, like a royal Portuguese person. He had all these unknown ties to royal courts. He was allowed to go to Spain and demand an audience with Queen Isabella and Ferdinand, and like no one demands an audience, and he did. He went there and said, "Hey, I want your royals to see me." And he's just a fisherman or the son of a net maker from Genoa, Italy. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff
So,
I found out.
so what's the point of why?
Why the
What's the
lies?
purpose? Yeah, why lie?
Uh, well, so in 1450, I was trying to think, around the 1450s, there was this papal bull, and a papal bull is a declaration from the Pope, and the Pope is the ultimate authority in Europe at the time, and Europe is the world. You know what I mean? If I'm the king of Spain and the only person I answer to is the Pope, well, then the Pope can tell me to do whatever. And in the 1450s, the Pope said there was like this little dispute going on between Spain and Portugal, and the Pope was trying to prevent a civil war between Spain and Portugal. And he said, okay, Portugal, everyone south of the equator belongs to you. Everyone north of the equator belongs to you, Spain. And what belong to meant that you're allowed to, by holy permission, conquer, enslave up to and including extinction, like up to and including totally wiping out any Saracens, Muslims, Judeans, Jews, or non-Christians. So if you weren't a Christian, south of the equator, Portugal could lay waste, could lay flame, and say, hey, this is in the name of God, by permission of the Pope. And north of the equator, it was Spain. So there's this papal bull called Dum Diversas, where the Pope said you can do that. And there was a couple of the other of these papal bulls that basically laid out what's known as the doctrine of discovery. The doctrine of discovery is still cited by the Supreme Court in hearings. Like we talked about it, I think over a year ago, about on the podcast, the Oneida Indian Nation sued the state of New York because they reneged on some of their contracts from back in the days. Like, hey, you gave us 15 whatever beads saying that we could have this piece of land. Well, then you took it from us. And the Supreme Court cited the doctrine of discovery to saying, well, it obviously lands on the state side, and that they said that the cure or that the remedy of the problem would be too severe. Like, because it kind of would be. You'd have to, kick all these people out of their homes that have been there for hundreds of years. So
we already did it once.
Yeah, the remedy.
No tag backs.
Yeah, exactly. No tag backs. Why lie? Because it was a big propaganda thing at the time. Christian Pope, and this is also coming out of the Dark Ages, out of like 1,000 years or so of post-Rome. There was a big decline in literacy. Post the Roman Empire, there was a big decline in literacy. There is kind of a fall into chaos. It's why English kings, whenever they discovered Roman statues, they thought that giants built them because they had no memory of the Romans being there. Because after the Romans left, there was no written language, there was no written history. Europe had descended post Rome. They're entering the Renaissance, the age of enlightenment. And so that's when people are learning to read and write again. This is the time for the church to, who already is the ultimate authority, but to plant itself in all of the books and all, beyond the shadow of a doubt. No, we discovered North America. We discovered South America.
Oh, interesting.
We discovered Southeast Asia. We discovered Africa. Can you believe it? Well, actually, Africa we knew was there, but like we discovered Australia. Never mind these people that have been there for millions of years. That are, in the case of North America, there were cities like Cahokia in Mississippi that at the time had 150,000 people living inside the city barrier. That was bigger than all of the major cities of Europe at the time combined. There was one city in North America, Cahokia in Mississippi, that had like the Mississippi Valley, Illinois, Iowa, Mississippi, that area had 150,000 people, more people than in all of the major European cities. Like they were like London was 15,000. I heard a podcast from a historian explain this. London was 15,000. Spain like was 13 at the most. These big France, Paris had like maybe 20,000. No one came near to the size of this. They had architecture. It wasn't just teepees. They had architecture, multi-layered homes that are still left in the canyons out west, like these in the valleys, these homes that have like 3-4 stories, these religious temples, these earth mounds that have no other reason other than religious meanings. Like this was a super developed, they had intercontinental trade. There's parrot feathers found in a turquoise city in New Mexico, and there was turquoise stones found in the Aztec pyramids. There's no turquoise stones in South America, and there are no parrots in North America. This guy named, he's on the Meat Eater podcast, but this doctor explained how a lot of historians point to that as proof that there was intercontinental trade. And we know that there are intercontinental religious ideas because the Cahokia had the earthen mound, the earth pyramids, that was the oldest pyramids in South America before they started using stones. They were using earth. So Cahokia had earth pyramids just like South America had earth pyramids. They had a shared culture, an intercontinental shared culture. A couple things happened. Well, a lot of big things happened that basically stopped them from progressing to match Europe. And when like a lot of things happened, but by the time Columbus landed, they were basically in the ashes of this. All of northern South America was being burned to the ground by the Aztecs. The Aztecs wiped out the Incas. The Mayans disappeared like off the face of the earth. There's no real good reason why the Mayans left. The Olmecs had been conquered by and basically wiped out by the Aztecs. And they were all rebuilding. Like even the Aztec Empire itself was real weak after all these wars and kind of fractured. Well, then Columbus lands, and Columbus isn't even the worst. The Spanish that land after him are like bloodthirsty, and these are like for real coked up uh religious maniacs. They want to prove that they're not Muslim because all of their ancestors in the Iberian Peninsula had been the Iberian Peninsula was under Muslim rule for 700 years before Spain fought off the Muslims, fought off the Moors. So they had something to prove, like to the rest of the Catholic world, that like, hey, we're not Muslim. So there was these coked up religious fanatics that had permission by the Pope to kill and enslave everyone in the name of Christ, and they found gold there, and tobacco, and all these other products. And this is perfect land for slaves, perfect, fertile ground for all our farms, for all our for our slave trade. It kind of just took off from there. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but that's the stuff I'm exploring on my pod.
Yeah, and that's why I can't believe anything.
Yeah, for real.
Can't you really can't trust the government.
No,
You
our
really
history
can't.
books are wrong.
His everybody everything. This is gonna sound so terrible. Everything that I thought was true turns out to be a lie or at least a gross misrepresentation.
Isn't that weird? Sam Tripoli says everything's a conspiracy. People are like, "Oh, you think everything's a conspiracy?" Like, yeah, dude, everything. Everything is a conspiracy. Like, up to 1492 sailed the ocean blue. Wrong. Pyramid.
Wrong.
Yeah, wrong. Bible, wrong. What I thought about everything, wrong. My politics, my identity, wrong. Oh,
Yeah, how about that, man? How about losing most major identity markers in the past couple of years, right?
you know what? That should be an incredible. I feel like Ram Dass would say that what an incredible blessing. Like what an opportunity we have.
Yeah.
How fortunate we are because we get to recreate ourselves.
Oh, I thought I kind of thought it felt like a free fall,
Oh,
like
right.
a
Yeah.
yeah. I thought maybe it was like an epic collapse or something, but maybe it's a blessing. Maybe that's what it is.
It sure is. All right. We are at 3 hours. This is probably going to be 3 different podcasts. My wife already came out and gave me the eyes. I think she's in bed now.
Oh, mine too. All right, well, it was good, homie.
This felt
Love
good.
talking to you.
Love talking to you.
Yes. All right, we'll see you.
Later.